Greetings and salutations again, my fellow Illumineers, me, your boy JDZ, and we're back with another episode of the Procast, episode number 14, and we're taking a deep dive into the Wilds Unknown metagame. Joining us this week is going to be myself, as always. Joining me is Thiago Santana in the building, holding it down, and we have Lam, multiple Golden Mickey winner, and the two-time DLC champion, the great Frank Karsten, has joined us for episode number 14. We've got a great show for you guys, so hopefully you enjoy as we explore the Wilds Unknown. But as we start, we like to get an update on the Illumineers and how you've been this weekend. Start with you, Thiago. Last Friday. It's been a short turnaround since the last episode. Yep. But how have you been over the weekend?
Yeah, I had a good weekend. Just grinding. Didn't do anything. Didn't leave my house. Just sitting here clicking some buttons. And yeah, I mean, I've just really been enjoying kind of learning Infinity. So it's been taking all my time.
Okay, we're going to talk all about that time and how it's been deployed. But LamChops, it's been a long time since I've seen you. Great haircut, by the way. Looking nice and clean. How have you been?
Thank you. I've been touching too much grass probably, and it's kind of affected my Lorcana skills. But I'm really excited for Infinity, and I've been starting to test it out.
Okay. And to end it off, we have the great Frank Karsten joining us for another rousing episode. I'm sure you got some concoctions that we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the episode, but how have you been? Anything in your canoe that's been getting you going?
I've been good. I haven't really had time to play much Lorcana, given that ever after I came back from Sao Paulo, I've been traveling to Magic the Gathering events and doing coverage on consecutive weekends. But I had been able to at least theorize about new decks, new brews, and also the limited format. I'm actually kind of sad that I wasn't able to participate in the pre-release this past weekend due to overlap with other events, because I always enjoy playing limited. And especially with this new set, when I analyzed it for an article on TCG Player for a limited tier list, I really liked how both the curve of characters seems better supported for like a nicely balanced limited format, which is the better distribution across all the ink costs, but also that there are like a whole bunch of archetypes that are well supported with commons and also higher rarities. So if you go into a draft, you can draft a super deck or a dwarf deck or a toy deck, a Madrigal deck. There's like a whole bunch of synergies to explore. And I think even more so than in previous sets, with many of those teams well supported at common, I think this is going to be a deep limited format where you can just draft it 10 times and have like a different experience each time. So I hope to be able to have that opportunity in the coming weeks at least. And well, to me, I'm at least glad to see that sort of proper and better supported design for sealed and draft play.
Did any of you guys get a chance to get out and play limited? Because I know I did. I had the opportunity to get out there and do a little bit of pre-release events. And Frank, you missed the best deck that you can draft. It's the location deck. It was so much fun. That was the deck that I played, and I had the Pocahontas. I had the a bunch of the locations of Leviathan's Lair, and I was cooking, man. It was a really good time at the pre-release event. So I do agree with you. I think the limited format for this actual set is quite fun and a great experience. But Lam, did you get a chance to get out this weekend? I know Thiago didn't.
No, I actually was really thinking about it because I was like, going to like a pre-release and playing some sealed or limited would sound really fun. And actually, for those of you who are listening, I was asking Frank Karsten in the car in Sao Paulo, I was like, what can I do to become a better player, Frank? And he said, play sealed. And I was like, oh my gosh. Well, so like now with the new set releasing, it was like my first chance to actually go do that.
Yeah, he didn't do it. Okay.
It's a good way to train your fundamentals, I think.
I didn't win. I got close, but I didn't win. What's up, Thiago?
Yeah, no. How did it get? Like, how many rounds was yours? 3?
We did 3 rounds. We did 3 rounds.
Nice.
And I lost one
Play
at the
the
end.
finals?
I made it to
No.
the final. I made it to the last round, and then the gentleman he had this really cool aggro deck, and he cooked me pretty bad. Like he came out, he had like a bunch of these toy. He had a toy aggro deck. He had a pretty dope draft, and he was just cooking. So I couldn't keep up. He just jumped out on me too fast. But still,
Nice.
it is a great
Yep.
time. So if you are watching this, either we are filming this in front of a live studio audience, but if you're on YouTube, make sure you get into the comment section. Tell me how your sealed weekend went as we go through and read all the comments. But
And for an
kicking
update, actually, since we talked about it just last Friday. I didn't get to make it out. However, Ed, who was on, was saying who's going to go, and he did take his down. So everybody
Let's
who was
go.
wondering if Ed could win his pre-release, he was in fact successful in doing so.
Let's go. Congrats to Ed, man, going out there and supporting his
This
local
is
community.
big for him. He needs this.
Taking another win. Okay, another common W for the North American Continental
Very-
Champion. But here
very
we are.
nice.
So we are into the Wilds Unknown, and Thiago, I know we've been talking about it for the past couple of weeks, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say along with Frank and LamChops. Just some of your overarching thoughts now that we've had the opportunity to digest this metagame a little bit. I know you've been spending time back and forth between the Infinity format as well as the Core Constructed format. So I just want to hear some overarching, sweeping thoughts on the format from you guys as we are kind of getting our real first looks at what this format can be like.
Yep. I think that it's kind of weird right now. The player base is like pretty split. Some people are trying core and some people are playing Infinity, but yeah, I think we're gonna try to cover all of it. Frank has some cool brews for us, so I'm kind of interested to see how he kind of arrived to where he got at, and yeah, then I have some Infinity decks as well.
Okay. But just like any thoughts on it, Lam? I know you've been playing a lot of Sapphire Steel before, but what's your overall impression on this set before we hop into those deck lists?
I've only been playing some of Infinity, and I think that kind of it's kind of hard, honestly, like coming from someone who's only played mostly core. I kind of missed out on the sets 7 and 8 of Infinity back before the first rotation, and it's kind of been hard for me to adjust. So I think that there are a lot of things I have to learn, and also just like keeping in mind all the new cards that have also come out, and how they could possibly affecting how the meta shapes.
Okay. And Frank, we were talking about this a little bit before, like before the podcast started, and you're saying you didn't have really a lot of time. You've been quite busy, but you did submit some of your initial thoughts and brews on what the new core constructed format can look like. So, do you guys want to just take a quick detour, look at those deck lists, kind of talk about those, and then maybe some more thoughts will come up about the core constructed format, and then we'll shift over to talk about Infinity and do the same thing. Just kind of theorizing, theory crafting. These are day one things, so obviously they're not going to be the DLC champion decks. They probably need a little bit more refinement, but I still think this is a great place to start. So here is Frank Karsten's take on the Emerald Woody deck. So if you want to talk about this deck, and then we can kick it around and share some ideas on it, we can open the floor with you, Frank. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, on the flight back from Sao Paulo, I was inspired to brew a whole bunch of decks, just to show off the new cards and new possibilities that we may see. And yeah, Wilds Unknown introduces so many toys that you can build an entire deck with cards almost entirely from this new set. Now the main draw in this deck is Woody, the shift line where you follow up the one cost Woody, perhaps even with like a bull's eye on turn 2, reduced cost, and then shifting into Woody on turn 3, immediately questing, drawing a card, getting value. That is a powerful start. And since Woody, boosts all of your other toy characters, he does get some additional benefits in a dedicated toy deck. I added the new song, Disgrowing Pressure, to the deck, with the idea that, Bullseye can sing that on turn 3 to kind of protect Woody. Then maybe you put like an alien into play, which can then immediately profitably challenge whichever character has to quest. But yeah, there's like a whole bunch of strong and playable toys in the new set. Rex Protective Dinosaur, a decent 2-drop bodyguard, can also protect your Woody. There's the Ham Piggy Bank, which is probably not as good as Grandmother Willow, but at least bring back some memories of that card, but then in a toy package. And I opted to, like, you can also go yellow red, but I opted for yellow green, largely because the early drop green toy characters, there's like the RC car, the alien, and Buzz Lightyear. Also Lenny at 3 doing sort of an Ursula impression seemed all quite solid and more appealing than the Ruby cards. There's Sid, the 6 cost in Ruby, might be appealing if the whole metagame starts to revolve around toys, but I don't know, this seemed more suitable to me. Jessie, Lively Cowgirl, the 3-drop is probably one of the stronger cards in the deck, just drawing cards repetitively, and also an ability that can shrink opposing characters that is easily triggered in this deck with lots of low-cost toys, which will then also play well with Under the Sea. Now, when I built this deck, my initial impression was that it's probably not going to be better than Amber Emerald Dogs. I do believe that the Lady and the Tramp synergies are ultimately like a little bit more powerful still in letting you cheat ink and like gain value from your deck. But this entire list, like I specifically constructed it that way, is going to be legal post-rotation. So my thought is that a deck like this can easily become a real factor in Core Constructed in a few months from now. And, if anyone is picking up the game anew, or if you know someone who, was excited about Toy Story or like wants to get into Lorcana as a new player, you probably don't want to recommend them to start with a deck that then rotates in like a month or two, but instead a deck like this, which is guaranteed to stay legal for over a year, I think is gonna be a nice option. I think the only cards in the deck even that are not from Wilds Unknown are like Under the Sea and Grandmother Willow, which are perhaps not even essential. So it is pretty cool that you can, like, if you want, just build an entire, well, seemingly reasonable core constructed deck with cards from just an entire new set. A final thing that I want to highlight is the new song "You've Got a Friend in Me," which brings back memories of friends on the other side, potentially drawing 2 cards, but then with some additional selection. Like in this deck, I believe it had 43 toys. So I calculated that, well, I mean, you're almost always going to hit 1 toy, and you will reveal 2 toys around 94% of the time, which is quite consistent. And I think even if you were to go down to like 35 toys or so, this card would still be quite reasonable. If you go below 35, it becomes a little bit inconsistent. But yeah, like basically, I mean, arguably better than friends on the other side due to the card selection effect in there. It's another payoff for like really going all in on toys. Between Woody, you've got a friend and me, and Jesse. Yeah, and then Alien too. You have a real incentive to just stick with one character type and don't go beyond that. And yeah, it seemed like a lot of fun to play, even if probably Ember Emerald Dogs is, in my evaluation, gonna be the likely stronger deck for the coming, well, what is it, like 2-3 months still.
For sure.
Yep. I think it's really cool. I think it's kind of interesting for people to look at the format, taking a look at the post rotation, since a lot of people are not going to be playing this core constructed format just because there's no big events for it, right? So if you're playing this deck now, you could just also add a card like the 7-cost Tramp, and then kind of largely just play the same shell with a lot of the toys. The You Have a Friend in Me card is something that when I saw it, like seemed really difficult to build around, because when I started looking at it, it seems like you needed such a crazy amount of toys. Like when I was looking at it, I wanted like 38 but to 42, something in that range. Like I wanted a ton of toys for it to really be powerful. I would probably imagine that the deck would still want like maybe some more copies of Grandmother Willow, maybe some copies of Nani. Those would be things I'd kind of be somewhat interested in adding. How about a card like Della's Moon Lullaby is a card we typically see in these decks, kind of to pair with the Under the Sea. Of course, we do have Jesse, but you are playing with the new song instead. What's kind of the thought process behind having something like that over having something just like a Della's that we would typically see?
Yeah, Dallas would also be feasible in that sort of slot. Like I already put in some of the new Mickeys that have a similar role that I think might also be worth testing in regular Ember Emerald Dogs. Though I was actually thinking that Dale, which then lets characters deal damage based on their toughness, may even be better in a Dogs deck. But yeah, when it comes to Della's Moon Lullaby versus the new song that forces a quest, I kind of liked the synergy between that, like, quest forcing and Alien, because then I was thinking, well, the Alien can just get like an easy challenge, and it may protect Woody a little bit better still than just like a -2 strength. But if you can force like a really big character not to challenge for a turn, yeah, that might be the difference between Woody surviving an additional turn or not. But I guess when you have Under the Sea, maybe the Della's Moon Lullaby synergy is even more important. So likely even, yeah, come to think of it, like a mix between the two effects, maybe the best to have some versatility. Because I also reckon that with the Mickey and the Jesse, you may already have like a bunch of like power reducing abilities that you can work from.
Yeah,
And
mixes
I
always
want to try out the
right,
new
right?
card as well.
Very fair, very fair.
Oh, no, it looks cool. Is there any fear of like missing some removal? I guess you're not really taking that type of route, but or maybe like a Chromacon. Do you think Chromacon could fit in a strategy like this too? Maybe or something to
Um,
keep your because it seems like you
yes.
can kind of get overwhelmed a little bit. Maybe I don't know, but the deck looks awesome.
So yes, it would, but Comic Con rotates out, just
Ah, that's
like
right. That's right. That's
the
right.
tram, which is why I didn't
Understood.
include it. Like I
Understood.
said that as like a constraint as I was building it and saw how
I like
sort
it.
of
Okay.
rotation proof this deck can be. But yeah, if you want to take this to like a stat championship in the coming months,
Mhm.
probably wouldn't hurt to add indeed some of those cards.
Nah, we're keeping it pure, man. Pure toys. I like this deck a lot, Frank. You cooked it. You cooked here. I mean, you have more that we're going to go through. So this is something. Any other comments you guys have on this strat before we pull up the next one? All right.
Let's go.
Here we go. Next track coming up. It's going to be the dwarfs. This is Frank Karsten's take on the dwarfs. We saw Thiago's build on the dwarfs and how you've kind of been putting in time to streamline that strategy in the last few weeks. But now we have Frank in the building showing his take on the seven dwarfs deck. You are playing the right behind you, and you're playing the big grumpy combo in the deck. Can you just tell us about it? What about this deck is appealing to you?
So I've played Amethyst Steel quite a bit, and it is always a completely fair deck. Now with right behind you, you actually have the ability for some unfair starts where you just deploy a 7 drop or a 5 drop as early as turn 3. I ran some numbers on the odds of that happening because you do need to have a princess and a dwarf on the turns beforehand. But with like 8 princesses at 1 or 2 cost and even far more dwarves, um, it depends a bit on your exact like opening hand, alteration strategy, who's on a play or draw, and so on. But you can expect to assemble a right behind you combination roughly once every 3 games by turn 3. Now that's not counting also having a big dwarf in hand, because you also had multiple options for that. Um, but yeah, slightly less than 1 in 3 games, you will be able to deploy a big expensive dwarf as early as turn 3, which is appealing. Now, is that good enough to warrant putting in all these effectively slightly underpowered and understated cards compared to like a regular Amethyst Steel deck? I'm not entirely sure, because now you will be drawing an awkward dwarf at some point in the mid game more often, whereas that could have been a card like Hades or something more inherently powerful. So it's gonna be a trade-off. My honest inkling is that probably a traditional Amethyst Steel deck will be slightly better, but I definitely see some potential in this sort of build, and also again, especially after rotation. Sure, after rotation we lose Doc, which is one of the better dwarves we have. Also sweet with the new 3-drop Snow White as sort of a combo. But well, there may still be something to this sort of strategy.
Okay, Tiago, I really want to hear your thoughts on this one because I've seen yours, and this looks similar to yours, but I think he's taking some different plays here or different card choices here. Can you just talk about this one for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, it's overall really similar to my list. This list does not play Elsa and doesn't play the full suite of Demonas, which I guess is the biggest difference. So I think those cards are somewhat important in the mid game to kind of make sure that you're still interacting with your opponent and kind of helping your draws where you're not using the dwarf package. And so I think you do still want some frequency of games where you're just curving like 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, singing Strength of a Raging Fire, and then topping the curve off with Elsa and Demona. Um, but it looks like like you cut all the way down to 0 Elsas, so it's probably something you really think is not necessary in a strategy like this. So I'd be kind of curious to hear how you arrived at that.
Yeah, well, I had to cut something, and I tried to keep a somewhat similar curve as regular amethyst steel, right? The 7-drop dwarf is, of course, not the same as the Mona, but I don't want to be drawing like all 6s and 7s. And the 5-drop dwarf, yeah, by itself is just weaker than Elsa, but it kind of takes those kind of slots. And I opted for Belle instead of like, Elsa or Hades because she's a princess, so I figured that might matter even with like a turn 6 right behind you or something like that. Yeah, I wouldn't mind additional Elsas or Demonas. The big question is, what would you be cutting then? Like I haven't been like like I guess then your list has a bit fewer 1 or 2 drops, or
Yeah, I
maybe
wasn't
maybe a
playing.
bit fewer 3 drops, maybe no 7 dwarfs mine.
Yeah, I wasn't playing Bell or the Seven Dwarfs Mines, so like I had those where Elsa's, and then I was playing 10-1 drops. But yeah, my list basically ran into the problem where I was playing like way less kind of in on the dwarfs package because I was playing less 1-drops, I was playing less big princesses, I wasn't playing this 4-cost stock, and then I sort of ran into the problem where I had to keep literally like half my deck in my altar is like I'm keeping like all of these 1-drops. If you have a princess and a dwarf, then you're like keeping both
Hmm.
these 1-drops, and then if you have, because like it gives you the option of hitting any 2-drop to hit the other half, and then I was like also keeping Cheshire Cat and Sneezy and Strength of Raging Fire and right behind you and a big dwarf, and so I'm keeping like half my deck, and so it's like so hard to alter to find the all of the combo pieces to assemble the turn 3 right behind you. So like I was assembling the combo at a much lower frequency than what you described from when you did the math because yeah, I'm literally keeping like half my deck in my altar.
Yeah, if you're cutting 1 or 2 drop dwarfs, then you likely have to start keeping them in your opening hand. With this build, there's like 16 1 or 2 cost dwarfs. So in your opening hand altars, you can somewhat reasonably actually toss all of them if you're mulliganing for a lot of cards, with the idea that you're likely to then draw into a new or alternative one. So basically keep a 1 or 2 cost princess, but not necessarily a 1 or 2 cost dwarf. Which is why I wanted to have like the maximum for all of those.
Yeah, I would just
And
be a bit worried if I like send back all of my 1 and 2 cost dwarves and then I don't draw like exactly Mulan, then since I sent back my 1 cost dwarf, now I can't curve like 1 cost dwarf into Pocahontas, and so now it's like much delayed, and now I'm getting into the point where like my character's being triggered, or they're elsing something down, or they're singing their own Strength of Raging Fire. So that's kind of the constraint that I ran into when trying to trying to optimize the exacts like right behind you curve out.
yeah, it's indeed a little rough. Like the most difficult part is just finding the right behind you. Right there, that card has like the fewest copies. So if you already have one in your opening hand, then you can be a bit safer with your keeps. But if you don't, then yeah, maybe you still need to risk it, even if you ultimately don't find the right dwarfs. It's also why I added like the 4-cost dwarf as sort of a semi backup. It's not as good as like putting a 7 or 5 cost in play on turn 3, but at least you have somewhat of a backup. But indeed, that also eats into the slots that would be taken by Elsa or Demona otherwise. So yeah, like this list of mine focuses a bit more on consistency than yours then. But that indeed also comes with the like even more of a downside of just drawing weaker cards in the mid game rather than an Elsa or a Nemona. And you are right that, yeah, the consistency of the turn 3 combo is even then still sort of a problem because it makes your opening hand altars so much more difficult. And yeah, if you don't then get the turn 3 right behind you, you've actually sort of hurt yourself with like awkward opening hand altars, which ultimately also harms your win rate. So yeah, like if you were playing like a core constructed tournament, Thiago, would you opt for like a list like this or a more traditional like Amethyst Steel deck? If you were playing Amethyst Steel.
I would probably need to do a lot more testing because I've not played a ton of core, but I'd probably just play the Seven Dwarfs list. But kind of yeah, just altered somewhat more conservatively for just like a normal game plan.
How important is the right behind you on curve? I mean, it still seems like it could have some value later in the game. Is that something you guys have thought about, or is that something you've noticed? It doesn't seem like it has to be on the third. I mean, obviously that's the most important, but it doesn't seem like it needs to be there, right?
Yeah, it's like a pretty easy activation to hit to have a princess and a dwarf in place, so it's mostly just like having a dwarf in hand, which is like the difficult thing. It's why I also opted to play a card like Dumbo instead of the Genie and Angel that Frank has here, just because when you pair it with the 1-cost Happy that's evasive on your turn, and sometimes you get out like Bashful early, and then just on himself and Elsa, you can sort of build your hand size. It's the best way to build your hand size out in the mid game in this deck. That's playing cards like Doc and Demona, that always like want you to have a small hand size. Dumbo's like the best way to actually build up a hand size. And then the 3-cost Snow White is also somewhat good at building your hand size when it's bouncing things that aren't exactly the Steel Doc. So through those kind of effects, I think you're sometimes able to make the right behind you bring out something like a Grumpy or a Bashful in the mid game, and when you do that, it's super strong because you're able to use the rest of your ink on other things, and your opponent gets really, really snowballed out of the game at that point.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that actually makes sense also with like the opening hand alteration strategy. Like decks are never built in a vacuum. You have to combine it with like how you actually plan to mulligan. But I reckon that your approach, where you if you then don't super aggressively try to alter for only the combo, but rather for just a like more reasonable general game plan with an occasional turn 3 hooray, or even turn 5 is also still good. That is probably the better approach. Whereas I was just focusing on maximizing the turn 3 consistency, but yeah, your approach is likely just gonna be better for like competitiveness. Makes sense.
All right. I like this deck a lot. We just talked about it. Lamb, you got anything you want to say about this one too? Core Constructed? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool how like the newer sets have been releasing. It's not really a technical analysis, but I kind of think it's cool how the newer sets have been releasing more like kind of more competitive like themed cards, such as like the toys and now the dwarfs. Like kind of before, I think they tried to do that with like brooms and such, and they were kind of not very good. But now that like it's about to rotate past from sets 5, or is it 9 through 13, then I think that these decks are probably going to like show up very, very frequently, even though like back then we weren't really used to running like broom decks. But I think that's really cool of just need to do that in their development.
Agree.
Yeah, and when the card pool shrinks, I think it's going to be like really, really prominent, these types of theme decks. Like I think right now they're like pretty reasonable to play in the meta, but when a lot of the powerful things in the format rotate out, these are going to be like really some of the more premium things you can be doing.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool because like when you play, then it's kind of like you're playing as part of like a story. And just like it's like it'll be like the dwarfs versus like the toys, and I think that's like really cool. It's like you get some like tribalism and war in there.
I like it.
Snow White versus Toy Story. Run it.
That could happen.
Best of
Incredibles,
15.
heroes versus villains, dude, for real. But actual super villains versus superhero, it can happen. I mean, we're in the
I'm
world of
down.
Lorcana. Anything is possible. All right, we got another one. This one right here is the deck that I'm probably going to start my core constructed journey with. I've been trying to play a lot of Kita decks. They have not been working. This deck has been working for me very positively in core constructed. This is a cool strat. Let's hear you guys talk about this one. Dale, one of the best cards in the set, I think. I think he's still carrying his weight quite well. You're back on Tiana, Frank. All these 4 willpower characters looking good.
Yeah, with Dale, like those questers like Daisy Duck and Tiana just turn into, well, effectively 4/4 characters, and that makes it way more difficult for opponents to challenge them profitably. Dale also seems like an excellent combination with Elsa. Now you're suddenly challenging as like a 5/5, and yeah, just an entire deck filled with high willpower characters that all get like an enormous boost from Dale. I also included 2 new Amethyst characters that are excellent questers. Will-O-the-Wisp is a sweet 1-drop that I think might actually replace Palace Guard in traditional Amethyst Steel. And in this deck, it adds to like another 1-drop that is not easy to challenge in the first place, and then, well, just keeps coming back for more and more lore. And I also included 2 copies of Dash Par, which is sort of like a gathering knowledge and wisdom, the action that gains to lore, but then with a sizable character attached. Seemed like a reasonable inclusion for a hyper aggressive Ember Amethyst deck. But yeah, Dale is definitely the main star in this list, and this is one that can exploit the new card very well. The only downside is that these sorts of decks are already weak to Under the Sea, and Dale just makes that even worse, because basically you want all like low strength, high willpower characters. Dale itself also gets swept up by Under the Sea. So that is a problem in a metagame where Death Sweeper is quite popular. We can hope to snag the opponents Under the Sea with Mowgli. And if they don't have Under the Sea, then I think this deck can actually quest and dominate the board very well. But yeah, that is the one worry I have with this deck. But otherwise, I think this is a sweet, aggressive deck that makes really good use of Dale.
Yeah, I think this Dale card's been super powerful. I think if you're able to play something like the Grandmother Willow on the second turn, and then followed up with the Dale on the third turn, it kind of turns your entire deck like into supercharge. If you follow it up with a card like Elsa, like curving Dale into Elsa is super strong, right? Because you exert their character and then Elsa rushes in for 5. We've seen people in the past play things like Basil to support their Elsa in decks like Blurple, which has just been like a mainstay of the format for the last 6 months. And yeah, I mean, everybody's gotten Elsa Basiled, right, at some point. So the Dale's kind of like built-in support for the Elsa. It gives it +3 attack, so that's kind of pretty strong. And then the Ohana Means Family is really strong in a list like this, where you're constantly trying to take challenges and you're naturally playing all these high willpower characters.
Agreed. Deck's awesome. I like it a lot. This one's awesome. This one's good. This one's good. Any other thoughts before we go on to the next one? We got another one. You guys are in for a special treat. We have another one. This is a little bit spicy, a little bit of Sapphire coming in from Frank Karsten. This one is the Emerald Sapphire support strategy, using another card that I enjoy in this set a lot, that new zipper, the big zipper and the small zipper, because he can shift on 2, and you have this entire support identity with the Ranger Plane. I think that is another really cool strat that a lot of people are kind of sleeping on right now. So Frank, why'd you cook this one up like this? The support, almost support aggro, I'd say, because you can really end the game fast with that Ranger Plane.
That is indeed the plan. And to be fair, this deck is a little bit out there. I reckon that if you want to win your set championship, you may be better off ultimately with like a more established strategy just adding some new cards, whether that's gonna be maybe adding the Woody to your Ember Steel deck, or maybe Dale to your Dogs deck, or like the new 4/5 for 4 to your Blurple deck. But if you want to try out something fun and new, we now have 8 effects, right? With both Ranger Plane and Alice that can give all of your characters support, giving you actually like a critical mass to build around. And in this deck, well, all that support can then boost, well, the lore capability of Mulan, as well as Alice. And it is then hopefully going to be easy to get one character up to 10 strength, activate the Ranger Plane, increase the lore potential further, and well, you just quest for a whole bunch. You play You Came Back to ready the character, quest for, I don't know, 10 lore again, and just go from 0 to 20 lore in one breathtaking turn. That was kind of the idea of this deck. Now, it is probably a little weak to interaction, which is why I'm a little worried about its competitive prospects, because if the opponent has a removal spell, whether that's like Strength of a Raging Fire or Elsa or whatever for your Alice or your Mulan, then yeah, most of your strategy kind of falls apart. You can still, quest and gain some lore, but you're just playing all these fiddly characters without like the main payoffs. But yeah, these are some sweet, fun synergies that we can now explore. And with Gadget Hack Wrench, the new 4-drop, putting Ranger Plane into play for free, there are some ways to cheat ink, which is always appealing. And yeah, just a fun new option that will probably only work well if the opponent doesn't have any removal. But if they don't, then yeah, again, you can just quest from 0 to 20 with a single character in one turn, which is pretty cool. And then also something to at least keep in the back of our minds as rotation draws near, to see if something like this may also be viable after the rotation.
This is cool,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, the Gadget Hacker Wrench, also, everyone is going to have support already, so that's just additional lore. So maybe that's an alternate win condition too. Just having, if you can find a way to build a pretty wide board, you can have the gadget boosting everyone, and then I don't know. It seems cool. What do you think about it, Thiago?
Yeah, I think I guess the difficult part is like building a board that is actually going to boost people. I think a lot of these characters are somewhat easy to deal with, and then they kind of get challenged into by your opponent rather easily, and we don't have a ton of ways to like go up on resources throughout the game. We have like the 5-cost Pete, but I think that's something that this color combination doesn't do like too well. Here in the Metafy chat, we do have an observation where they're talking about how cheap the deck is. So that's another thing. The deck costs less than $25, so it's really easy to throw together and try out. I'm sure you have most of these commons laying around and whatnot. So yeah, if you guys want to join the Metafy stream, there'll be a link in the description of the YouTube video. And yeah, you guys can join, ask us questions, participate in giveaways.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't even consider the budget aspects while building this deck, but that is nice, and that does matter, especially for perhaps newer players or players who don't want to invest too much into a deck. Just having the ability to put this together with, I think it's largely like inexpensive cards indeed. That is a nice aspect to have. I think you can just take this to your locals and like play some fun, fair, reasonably competitive games.
For sure. I think probably the most expensive card is maybe that Mulan, or maybe the Raya. I know Raya is maybe just a couple dollars. Mulan is maybe, a few dollars as well. So yeah, very good point. I like this deck a lot, man, and I like the fact that you're out here trying, and I think that's very important that we do, especially great players. You guys got to get out there and try everything. I know you are, but at least sharing that stuff with the community, I think people can benefit mightily from that. But that is Core Constructed. I would like to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions about these decks Frank has shared, and then what do you guys think about Core Constructed versus Infinity? I want to have that conversation as well in the chats and also in the comment section. But now we're about to take a swift detour right on into the Infinity format. So we have a few more deck lists submitted by Thiago the Great as well. Thiago is here back on his Amber and Steel journey. He needs to get off that journey, get back into something cool. I'm kidding. I'm joking. This deck is dope. Amber, Steel, no will, but it's like got that mid-range funk to it with the Beast Akud. This is a lot of people are thinking that this deck might be one of the better decks, but it's slowly starting to fall with the rise of Ward. Tiago, what do you think about this strat in Infinity? What are some of the pros and cons of this deck?
Yeah, I think that this is going to be maybe the most popular deck in the Infinity tournaments, or at least I think Amber Steel as a color combination will be the most popular ink pair, but I think that this will be the most popular iteration of the deck within the color pair. I think that more people will be playing this style of deck than they will be playing an aggressive Amber Steel or playing the A Whole New World variants. This is at least what I've been seeing the most of. But it basically just tries to utilize like the strong early singers, cards like Cinderella and Angel and Troubadour, sometimes Ursula Vanessa as well. And a lot of these like strong mid-game tools like the Aerial Spectacular Singer and then also the free removal songs like Strength the Raging Fire, Let the Storm Rage On, and then Along Came Zeus to really efficiently develop to the board while taking out the opponent's entire turn typically with just a removal spell. And then you have some nice card advantage tools like the Boost Aerial and Rapunzel and Beast and Dock. Now you have Nani to fish for the Dock. And so the deck just has a really nice mix of solid things to develop early, which kind of sets you up for this mid game where you're constantly deploying threats and removing your opponents' and then drawing a bunch of cards to make sure you keep doing it over and over again. And yeah, basically the you kind of get away with being just like this removal spells card draw deck because your songs are free. So that's like the cheating unfair thing that your deck's able to do to keep up with the other Infinity decks.
Nice, Frank. What do you think about it? It's you're an Amber Steel person as well. You play a little bit of Amber Steel. What are your thoughts on this deck?
I like it. Like I am planning to dive into Infinity in the coming weeks, and this is certainly a type of build that I would be interested in. Like when I first looked at Infinity, yeah, like I built a somewhat similar list with many of the same ideas. There was Ariel, there was Nani as well, and then the whole rest of the curve kind of coalesces. Did you consider having Rhino in there, Thiago? Because looking over your build and the one that I made a while ago, I think that is one of the main differences. I had the one cost Rhino and the shift Rhino, mainly also to extend the one drop slot. Because if you are on the play, you only have Cinderella, because you cannot put an angel down on turn one, and yeah, you might just fall behind a little bit, not being able to empty your hand, and have like a board impact as much as you might like otherwise, especially in a deck with Doc and such.
Yeah. This list is mostly just like trying to kind of give an idea of what like the most common list people are playing is. But yeah, you do frequently see rhinos around, but I would say that people tend to like the Angel a little bit more just because it takes advantage of the Coot a little bit better. because the turn that on turn 2, which would be the first turn that you get to sing with either Angel or Rhino Shift, you didn't have to invest the 2 ink that turn, so you're able to take a little bit more advantage of the Akud reduction, but yeah, I think Rhino in general is also just a pretty well-positioned card against a lot of the decks in Infinity. I think a lot of people are trying to play for board, and the single like 1 cost 1/2 Rhino sitting on the board kind of freezes a lot of the decks, and kind of stops them from using their effects like their singers to be able to um, yeah, sing songs to take out your characters because they're scared of you shifting a Rhino to then go and challenge their singer. So yeah, I think it's like definitely a worthwhile card to play. Right now we did lose JDC. He had a hard out, but I'll be taking over the show for now, so we can continue, so we can get through all the stuff. But yeah, Jonathan, is this sort of a deck that would interest you?
Yeah, I tried this one. This is actually one of the few decks I tried for Infinity. I think I did try a different version with Rhino though, and like you guys were saying earlier, it's really, really good at challenging out like a lot of like 0/4s, 1/4s, and then also like as like some immunity to muses. So against Green Steel, they can have a hard time removing that character. So they'll get a lot of early lore and just be like a pesky singer that sticks on the board. I think that this deck is honestly it was like one of the smoother decks to run. I think that um, if you've played Lorcana a decent amount of time, picking this deck up will probably be pretty easy in terms of just like how you slowly gain board advantage throughout singing songs and then sticking like cheating out ink by singing a lot of songs for free. And then if you are against red, then you kind of just play P before their critical turns. And against this more aggressive decks, you tend to have an easier time against them because you are just have so much removal in your deck. So I think that this is a deck that I'll be looking towards to consider playing at tournaments. I would say it's just a general all-rounder that's pretty strong.
Yep. I think the red decks are probably the most difficult matchup just because you're not like the best at pressuring them. Kind of why we see some cards like that Pete and like Mr. Smee just to kind of give you some angle in there, but maybe if you had cards like Mowgli or something like that, could give you a little bit more game into those decks. But if we're able to take a look at the next deck, we have a green-purple discard deck that I made. This is also one of the most popular decks. It was a deck that was really common at the end of the previous rotation, and it is sort of taking advantage of the Diablo Shift package alongside some discard spells, but it's an Amethyst, so you kind of have access to some of these strong mid-range tools that these Amethyst decks do, like this Genie and the Elsa and the Friends on the other side, which gives you some resilience to some of the Diablo hate, which is all over in Infinity right now. People are playing so many copies of Brawl and Jebediah Farnsworth and these type of effects that the decks that are pretty all in on Diablo are a little bit fragile, and so this one kind of takes a more like fair approach to it where you're kind of just using it as like something to do in the early game that's like kind of warrants a response, but if your Diablo gets taken out, it's certainly not the end of the world. I know that you played something kind of similar to this in the World Championship, Frank. How did you kind of arrive to that deck, and how did you kind of see it in that meta? And then what do you think of it kind of moving forward in the Infinity format?
Yeah, you're right. When I was looking over this list, and indeed considering that I hadn't really been able to dive into Infinity yet, I was actually thinking, man, this just looks like the list I played at the World Championship last year. What is even different? And then okay, sure, I did find that there's Dumbo and Cheshire Cat, like those are semi-new additions, but beyond that, it's like so similar to the like almost the exact list I played back then.
Yep.
I did like that deck quite a lot. I thought it was one of the better decks in the whole 3-deck lineup. Just solidly positioned against almost anything. Like you could play sort of a control game against aggro decks with your rush characters, your crabs, just efficient early game challengers, but also could go long against the more controlling decks, perhaps exploiting the Prince John and discard package. So with like prudent opening hand alteration and inking, you could like play these two different games in the same deck, and this deck still has that capability. It looks like. I mean, I do have to imagine, like, were there, like, beyond Dumbo and Cheshire Cat, really no other cards printed over the last year that would be a good addition to this? But I also cannot really think of any from the top of my head.
I played this deck
Um,
when Set 9 first came out, and then Infinity got introduced because it was the first rotation. Like the day after the set came out, there was a tournament. The I guess the card was out in Set 8 maybe. Was Chip out, the 4-cost 3/2 that makes them discard a card on play? Because it was a card that nobody was playing in the um World Championship, but so maybe it came out after, but
no, I think some
that's
people actually did play it
okay.
there.
Yeah. That
I
was a
believe it
card
was
that
legal.
okay. Yeah, it's Set 8, so it would have been out there. But yeah, that's a card that some people have been playing after, but yeah, really not a ton of support. The deck is like somewhat narrow in the kind of cards you want to add, just because yeah, you're kind of just
Mhm.
forcing a lot of slots to
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
actions and to your discard spells, and then to your shift targets. But I think the Dumbo works insanely well in this deck.
Mhm.
Basically, with all of the discard spells, you're creating such a low resource game where when you cast Sudden Chill, you're going down a card in your hand to bring your opponent down a card in their hand, or when you cast Pull the Lever to make them discard a card. Um, both players are arriving in the mid game with fewer cards in hand, which means fewer removal spells, and then your deck is constantly like presenting all of these strong threats that your opponent needs to deal with. When you shift to Diablo, they have to brawl it. When you play Peter Pan, they have to use removal on it. And then you cast Sudden Chill to take out another card in their hand. You played Ursula, which stripped the song out of their hand. And then you get to the point in the game where Dumbo comes down, and then they've had to use so many removal spells on other things, and then he kind of just survives and is able to take over the game. So the deck previously would get in these spots where you would take away all their resources, the board would be neutralized, but then your board would be 3/1 questers or whatever. And now when you arrive in that spot and you play Dumbo, um, there's it's basically being at like 20 lore. Like if you play Dumbo on a board with 2 evasives, use them both to draw cards, which is super easy in this deck you're playing. The 2-cost Diablo that has evasive, you're playing Peter Pan, Diablo Shift, Thiago, Genie, Elsa, all these things. So Dumbo comes down, draws a couple cards, and then if they don't immediately answer him, he's readying up and drawing like 3 or 4 more cards. It's so much more than these Dumbos draw in like core, for example, and I think it's because you're playing like all these cheap evasives as well. But yeah, if you ever play Dumbo in a low resource game, he completely takes over.
Yeah, for sure. I like that a lot. I like the only main change I would propose is to just add an additional 1-drop shift Diablo. In fact, at the World Championship, I had, and I even had to like scour like local stores for this because I didn't actually bring it. Like the not
It's the
the fourth
Maleficent
copy.
one.
Yeah, not the fourth copy of the green one, the 1/2, but rather there's like a 1-cost 2/1 Diablo with, I don't know, like irrelevant abilities, does something with Maleficent, doesn't matter
Yeah,
at
yeah.
all. Just a vanilla 2/1, but it works well as a like as a shift character. And I had it then because it also doubled as like a proper challenger for opponents' piglets and the like. Now, probably, given that the current Infinity format is gonna be dominated more by let the storm rage on, people are gonna shy away from characters like Piglet, so that may be less necessary. Also, the World Championship was open deck list, so I didn't really need the look at the opponent's hand information as much. But I did like an 8th 1-drop shift Diablo just for curve purposes. Maybe also an additional Merlin Crab in there just to have a bit more challenging power, but those are like all minor tweaks. And actually, Cheshire Cat sort of also takes now the 3-drop slot. And yeah, in terms of what to cut, maybe the 4th pull the lever. I only had 3 at Worlds. Maybe 1 Iago, because we already have a whole bunch of 4-drops just to make room for that extra 1-drop. But yeah, and the fact that like I'm only thinking of like those super minor tweaks to the curve, and the rest all looks pretty good to me, indicates that yeah, this is a solid list for sure. Yeah, even the 3rd Peter Pan just makes sense to me with the presence of Dumbo. So yeah. I think this deck was favored against Amber Steel back at the World Championship, and probably Amber Steel gained more, or was it's like it now built a bit different, but
Yeah. I think that's the big thing
this
is
can
that
easily be a contender. Yeah.
a lot of the other decks have gained more since set 8 than this deck did, whereas I do think that this deck was like incredibly strong back then. In my opinion, it was the strongest deck, but yeah, it seems like a lot of the other strategies have gotten more powerful things to do, but it's still one of the good decks. The Cheshire Cat's kind of interesting now because a lot of people are playing with the Snowfort aggro deck, and so having Cheshire Cat is a good way to kind of combat the resist that that deck is trying to take advantage of, but ultimately it might not be as good as some of the other 3-cost anti-aggro cards that people used to play, like Merlin Crab or Madam and Fox. Yeah, any thoughts on this one, Jonathan?
This is actually one of the decks that I also tried. I think I tried it more towards the time that you mentioned, Thiago, like in set 8 or 9, when Infinity was like being explored a little bit. I kind of like how this deck has so many different like powerhouse cards, like kind of the Diablo Shift, the Prince John, Dumbo. Like there's so many things that like sometimes your opponent just can't deal with. That'll run away with the game. And just like having such a diverse, like flexible game plan is like really powerful, and just allows you to have more like agency throughout each game. Just like knowing which cards to play towards and which ones your opponent's deck will have a hard time dealing with. I think that it's definitely a super strong deck.
Yep. And so I think that is it for the deck lists. Do we have any sort of final thoughts on the Infinity format as a whole, or like kind of things we're looking forward to trying? Maybe I'll start with you, Jonathan.
Oh yeah, I'm interested in trying out a few different decks. I think I'm still figuring out which one I like the most. I think that like switching from like my traditional like Sapphire deck to playing kind of aggro decks has me kind of lost a little bit right now. I'm like, yeah, I feel like
I'm
this
like
switch up.
throwing all these aggro deck lists at
Yeah.
Jonathan. I'm like, Jonathan, this deck is so good. And then he was like, dude, what am I supposed to do, man?
I'm like
I'm just
literally
looking
like
at these cards.
0-5. I'm like 0-5. I'm just like these are pretty hard. So I definitely have a lot of learning and catching up to do. I kind of feel like the meta is kind of favoring towards like the extreme sides of like the like slow decks and fast decks. I feel like kind of aggro decks and like extreme control decks will kind of be fighting for like the best spots, which kind of puts like control decks in kind of a weird spot because they have to have enough to beat the other control decks, and then also have to have enough early removal for aggro decks, which is kind of makes them overall weaker in general, I think. So it might be just like an aggro time for it to shine. But yeah, I'm looking forward to trying out a lot of new decks and just trying to figure out which one works best for me.
What about Blue Steel Wheel with Scuttle? Sings a whole new
I
world with
actually,
Ward.
I actually haven't even tried that
Merryweather.
yet. But maybe I should try it. That'd be
How about you,
interesting.
Frank? I know you haven't quite had the time to dive into Infinity, but you said you're planning on over the next couple weeks. What are kind of the first things you're gonna try and things you're gonna look out for and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, this sort of Ember Steel deck, I will certainly play a whole bunch of games with. This green-purple Diablo deck as well. Like, I have good memories and experiences with such decks, so I'm interested in seeing how they will do. I think in general, like the ideal approach for like learning Infinity, also for other people who may want to prepare for upcoming DLCs, is, well, if you have some time at first, just play a bunch of games with a bunch of different decks just to get like a feeling for everything, and then ultimately try to zoom in on like 3 or 4 decks as a team, or as like a small group of players, and then test matchups between those decks, like seriously, rather than just playing against random opponents on well, anywhere. Just play against other strong players, maybe switch decks in between, discuss the plays, make sure that the results you get are realistic and accurate, and then yeah, like make like an honest overview of what you find in terms of what wins the most, and yeah, try to pick a deck maybe, well, maybe half a week before an event, and then spend some time perfecting it. But yeah, I'm gonna start with playing a bunch of games with Ember Steel and seeing how that goes.
Man,
Actually,
you guys
the
are missing it. Hold up, you guys gotta give me some. I need my Kita decks, man. I need somebody to make a Kita deck. We're playing Kita, okay? Help me out. I'm back. Okay, I had to take a quick little break. Sorry about that, gentlemen, but I'm still waiting. I'm gonna
welcome
have to
back.
jump out again. But Kita, okay? Kita, Crystal Scion. All right, let's make it happen. We got Ward, we got blue green, we got red blue. Let's do it, okay? Somebody help me out. Blue amber, whatever you want to do, we can make it work. Kita is the future.
Yeah, I
When
know
you,
Ed has kind of been trying out some of the Kita strategies. However, to very little success, I will be
Yeah,
completely honest. But yeah, there's a lot of cool tools for it. You can play a lot of these like cycling cards and some like uh, cards like Develop Your Brain, and there's like a Red Improvise. You can kind of add some actions to your discard early before Kita-ing. However, yeah, it does. Maybe it's not as strong as some of the other strategies that you have the opportunity of playing.
I'm sad,
Uh,
man. You guys are breaking my heart.
well,
what do you think? Yeah.
this is exactly why it's good to have different players with different preferences on a team. Because when you said Kida, I wasn't thinking of the Crystal Scion, but rather the Protector of Atlantis, right? Maybe using
Okay.
that in an Ember aggro deck to shrink the opponent's board, or combining that
Yeah.
with Under the Sea. Um, and I, yeah, likely wouldn't really be starting with any Sapphire decks, but that's just like a personal preference.
Got it.
And exactly why it's good to have just different perspectives and ideas, so that yeah, no stone is left unturned, and the people who enjoy certain strategies spend their time in trying to perfect those, and seeing if it works. Because, well, if I look at Kida Crystal Scion, I'm a little skeptical, but who knows? Also, like a unique effect, so it does have potential for sure.
This
So,
card is crazy when it works. It's like you play this card, and then next turn you play another one, and you're just sitting there. I like had to spend everything I have to kill the first one, and then you're sitting there with like 26 ink, and I'm like, this guy's gonna draw 3 cards every single turn. I'm sitting here with nothing. I just spent everything. Uh, but yeah, you get to such ridiculous ink total so quickly that when you look at it, you're like, this card says pay 7 to cast Develop Your Brain. This sounds horrendous. but it's actually like extremely powerful if it is able to stick. So the card itself is not the actual worst, but yeah, probably not the best version of red blue that you have access to in Infinity. Probably have to play some like a watered down version of it in core is probably its best chance. Um, but yeah, I think you were talking about, Frank, how you kind of want to zero in on like a hand, maybe like 3 or 4 decks, and then kind of like test those matchups. But I think right now people are really having difficulty with that because the Infinity format is so uncharted and there's so many viable decks. When you kind of just try to filter, like I'm just gonna play, like the other day I went to go build them in paper. I was like, I'm gonna build the good decks. I'm like, okay, what are the good decks? I started listing them out. I got to 11 decks. Like, how am I supposed to test like all these 11 decks? And so what would kind of be your process of like trying to narrow that down, and really find, like the couple good ones? Because I think as soon as you start trying to list them, you're like, whoa, my list like keeps going and going and going and going.
Yeah, that is indeed like way too much to try to test. Um, and indeed, this is often a problem that comes up in like testing for these large card game tournaments. Um, Often, like what helps is indeed just like at first let everyone just free play and like get some reps with all kinds of ideas, and then like have a meeting where you I don't know, take like a big list of maybe 20 contenders, or however many you can think of, and then everyone like assigns some values to each deck based on like how much promise or potential you see in them, whether that's based on the win rates you got online, or just the feeling you had, or even how much it is seeing play in the events thus far. Right, the most expected deck in the metagame should probably be part of it all. And based on those inputs, yeah, try to tune it down to like a more manageable size. But yeah, that is a process where it helps if you have a group of experienced players, all of whom give their best inputs and impressions, and then you weigh all those together. Because yeah, trying to narrow that down by yourself is a very challenging task. And I mean, if you really don't know, or if you're by yourself, you can always go to say Inkdex and see what the metagame is like. But I'm not sure we've had enough Infinity tournaments to really have valuable data on all that.
Yeah, I think the
But
best
but
way the
yeah,
best way
it
to
is
get
relevant.
data would be like through like online play rates and whatnot. But I
Mhm.
think it builds a big opportunity for people if they want to play something just barely outside of the meta. It's like going to be something a lot of people are going to have to overlook in testing. So it's like there's like 3 popular Diablo decks: green steel, green purple, green yellow. There's like 3 popular amber steel decks: the mid range, the steel song, the aggro deck. There's like the red blue items and the red blue shark deck are both like contenders to be the best deck. There's Blurple, which is super popular. There's red purple, which is I think the second most popular deck. There's the green yellow fort deck. There's all these sorts of decks that it's like none of these decks are clearly like, oh, this is something that people aren't going to play. So even something like Steel Song, it's like some big simplification people are going to do in their testing is they're just going to be like, okay, well, I'll test against the Amber Steel midrange deck since I think that's going to be way more popular than Steel Song. And then if I play against Steel Song, I'll kind of just pair like what I know against the Amber Steel midrange deck plus like my experience for having played it um, 2 years ago. Um, but a lot of people are not going to have played against it in core. So I think there's like, and then they're going to kind of overlook it in their testing. There's really not a ton of people playing the Whole New World variants of Amber Steel. So if that's something that like you used to play and you really like that kind of deck, like there's a big, big chance that people are gonna not have too much practice into something like that.
Yeah, I am actually curious about that. If you have played any games with a whole new world versions, or whether or why you think those are better or worse than the no wheel Ember Steel versions. But in general, I think it's important to have sort of a gauntlet of, and this could be like 4 or 5-ish decks that provide a good cross section of the metagame. And then you can test your new brews against that gauntlet. And such a gauntlet should contain like both an aggro deck, a control deck, a mid-range deck, and also should have at least one deck with like key threats in the format that you at least need to answer or keep in mind for your own card choices. Like there should be a Diablo deck in there. Probably one is enough. And yeah, there should be a deck with like the best Ember cards in there and so on. But yeah, going back to the wheel, have you, Thiago, or you, Lam, played any games with an Ember Steel, a whole new world deck?
No, I haven't
have.
tried Horde mode.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying I haven't tried it. I've only tried like the aggro and the mid-range version.
Yeah, I think it's super uncommon. I think in like 600 games or something, I've played against it maybe once or twice. Like it's almost extinct. But I know some people are having some success with it. I think they are trying to pair cards like the Shanti 3-cost Singer 5, that's a 0/5, with the new Dale, which kind of gives you some challenging power against decks like the Snowfort deck, which kind of tries to get around your removal by having cards like Ursula Deceiver and the Snowfort to give resist. And they kind of take advantage of the fact that your deck is curving a bunch of 1-strength characters for the first 4 turns. And so I think, yeah, it's really kind of gives you a different way to attack the board. So that's kind of the list that I've been seeing that's had the most success. But yeah, it's extremely uncommon, and I haven't gotten to play any of it myself.
Oh, I'll try it out and see.
Yep. Other than that, I think we are nearing the end over here, so we will throw it to a giveaway. We are going to pick out 2 giveaway winners. For that, we will give you guys a trivia question that you guys can go ahead and answer in the Metafy chat here live. If you are watching on YouTube, you are not eligible for the giveaway. You have to be here on Metafy, so there will be a link in the description for how to join. Do either of you guys have a question prepared? Otherwise, I'll drop one. Nope. Okay, so I will, yeah, the first question for the giveaway will be about a card that Frank showed in one of the deck lists. In the green yellow toys deck that Frank showed us, he had a new song from set 12 that costs 3 and reads, chosen opposing character can't challenge and must quest during their next turn of Fable. Draw a card. What is the name of that song? Wow. Insta light speed. We have Dueler taking it away with the growing pressure. He must have some insane internet connection because a bunch of people put that right away. But yeah, he got it first. So congratulations, Dueler. Frank, do you have a question to ask them to choose the next giveaway winner?
So in the green blue deck that I showed, I had, and this was a deck built around Mulan and Alice. I had 2 items that the new gadget Hack Wrench can put in play for free. One is Snowfort, what is the name of the other one? No, it was already answered before
there
you
you
even
go.
completed the
Before the
question.
question came out, wow, Gator got it instantly. So yeah, congratulations to Gator and Dueler for being the giveaway winners this week. Yep, that's all for us. Basically, we are going to be doing this again next week on Tuesday, I believe, at 3 p.m. Eastern. I will be joined, I think. Actually, I'm not going to confirm who I'm joined with, but yeah, we'll be back next week, 3 p.m. Eastern next Tuesday. If we want to kind of close it out, Jonathan, what are you going to be up to? And yeah, anything you want to say?
Well, thank you everyone for watching. It was a lot of fun looking at these deck lists. I'm going to be testing Infinity and getting my butt whooped while playing aggro, and then probably trying to switch to something else. But that's what I'll be up to these upcoming.
Yeah, I'm basically trying to get Jonathan to play all these aggro decks that I've been having success with, and he just wants to play his Sail the Azurite Sea. And, you know, some people are the Daisy deck guys, some people are the Sail the Azurite Sea guys, and, you know, you fall one side of the line. But yeah, what do you have coming up, Frank?
Yeah, I'm gonna put some Daisy Ducks in my deck and start questing in Infinity.
Let's go, my man. Awesome. Yep, so thank you guys so much for watching. Again, if you want to see us live and participate in the chat and the giveaways, check us out on Metafy. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll be back next week. See you later.